The Indian Child Bride and the Old Arab Husband. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. It has been written in English and translated into Arabic by the author Dr. Ahmed. This book continues narrating the story of the Arab sugar daddy and the beautiful Indian girl. This is an intriguing epic story which resonates with truthfulness, confrontation, challenge, genuine love, strong resilience, and steadfast courage. I invite you to accompany me as I continue narrating the tragic life story of the extremely beautiful Indian mother, Rehana Khan, and her lovely little daughter, Ifat Khan. Let us resume our narration of the lifelong journey of those two Indian women. Before we dive into the tapestry of the story, I would like to remind the reader this novel is narrated in 6 books. Book 1, The Arab Sugar Daddy and the Beautiful Indian Girl. Book 2, The Indian Child Bride and the Old Arab Husband. Book 3, The Indian Miss World and the Rage of Muslims of the World. Book 4, Christina and the Complete Jew. Book 5, The Tears of God, Jews, Blacks, and Muslim Women. And Book 6, The Hidden Life of the Prophet Muhammad. This book narrates the Islamic halal marriage between the 70-year-old Arab husband, Sheikh Ahmed, and the 7-year-old Indian child bride, Ifat Khan. Book 2. The Arab Sugar Daddy turns into Satan the Granddaddy. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief passages for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. All characters in this novel are fictional and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, is merely coincidental. Chapter 7. The American Human Rights Activist. From the time Rehana Khan was arrested and sentenced to be stoned to death by the Sharia court, and for more than 2 years and 10 months in the Jeddah women's prison, we could have written hundreds of books about her suffering and abuse, and also the heinous crimes that had been committed against her little daughter, Ifat Khan, in her absence. The imprisoned mother lost half of her weight, and most of her beauty faded away, and she became like a faint copy of the former lovely and sexy Indian girl, Rehana Khan, who was considered more beautiful than Cleopatra and Aphrodite. She was loved by the mad Arab Qais as the lovely Indian Layla, and worshipped as a Bollywood celebrity film superstar. But now she lost interest in everything and became nothing. She concluded that even her daughter Ifat had believed the false charges and disowned her. She has no address to send letters to her children and mother in Bombay. She held hundreds of horrifying dreams and visions. For 3 years, she never ceased to see the visions of the late beautiful Pakistani wife Sakina, that poor young woman, who was brutally stoned to death for having sex with her lover while she was married to another man. That late Pakistani girl, as if remained living with her inside her brain. She appeared to her every night in her dream, and begged for mercy and help. Very often during the day, she saw her vision. Rehana felt as if she was possessed by the spirit of Sakina. Many times, she saw in her dreams scary bearded men chasing her with stones and bricks trying to catch her and stone her to death too. Whenever she saw that nightmare, she woke up in the middle of the night and began to scream at the top of her voice and called for rescue. She said to her chasers she is too young and has children to look after, and therefore she does not want to die because she has done nothing to deserve such a brutal death. Sometimes, she saw visions of ghosts and goblins during the day attacking her in her cell. Those visions made her believe that she was living in a haunted cell. She became like a madwoman. Many times, the guards thought that she had lost her mind. She screamed and begged them to take her out of her cell and keep her in a place with her other prison inmates. The Saudi guards ignored her requests, and they considered her insane. Those cruel guards and other inmates accused her of being possessed by Al-Afrit. In Islam, Al-Afrit are evil jinn who are large, powerful, and very crafty. Singular is Afrit. See the Quran, Surah Al-Naml 27, verse 39. There are many times when, in exasperation and despair, she would bash her head against the wall until those guards would come and put her in chains. To stop her from killing herself before her stoning day, she was put in a straitjacket. Anyone who had seen Rehana Khan before she entered prison would not have believed today that she is the same young Indian girl. Rehana's suffering was compounded by her illegal pregnancy. 7 months from the day she was sentenced, she delivered a baby boy in prison. She is treated by her inmates and guards as a dirty professional prostitute who used to marry men, cheat them, steal their money, and run away from them. It was nothing short of a miracle that the baby boy survived in her womb, after she had been hammered mercilessly by the Saudi policewomen during her interrogation. She was tied up and flogged on her back and legs. She was slapped and spit upon, regularly. She was treated as a liar and dirty prostitute. They forced her to admit crimes that she knew she had not committed. They used a Pakistani translator who hated every Indian on the surface of the earth, even Indian Muslims. She added things she did not even say. She cursed her and insulted her with every filthy word she knew in the Urdu language. Rehana tried to convince the Jeddah police interrogators that she was brutally raped by 2 Saudi police officers when she arrived new in Saudi Arabia, but to no avail. For 2 years and 10 months, not a single person came to visit Rehana Khan in prison. It is as if she had fallen off the face of the earth or been exiled to another planet, and no one even knew who she was or where she had come from. One day an American human rights activist came to her cell and talked to her through a translator. When she narrated her story in tears, both the American human rights activist and the Indian translator wept. The interpreter is an Indian Muslim girl who has been employed recently by the Saudi Police Authority as a translator in the women's prison and the Jeddah Sharia court. The American human rights activist and the Indian interpreter believed every word the condemned Indian maidservant had told them, that she had for 3 years, waiting for her execution even though she had not committed any crime. She had not indulged in consensual sex with any man since her husband died. She told them that the 2 Saudi policemen raped her in exchange for the safety of her little 7-year-old daughter. She told them that they raped and beat her so severely, she became unconscious and almost died. If it was not for her daughter and the kind Saudi Bedouins, she would have died, and her body would have been buried amongst the moving sands of the Sahara Desert. After living a month in the tent of the kind Bedouins, she traveled with them to the city, homeless and without food. She was beaten mercilessly by a correctional police officer, but she was saved by a kind Indian man. The man told her that he would not allow her to live in his apartment unless she would agree to marry him on paper. He convinced her that if she did not marry him, they would be reported by the neighbors to the police, and they would be condemned as adulterers and get stoned to death. She believed him and agreed to the mock marriage, but they had not had sex together, not even once. She and her small daughter lived with him for a little over a couple of weeks. Finally, her Saudi sponsor somehow found her in a Filipino beauty salon and took her to his house. The Pakistani chauffeur of her sponsor also convinced her to marry him on paper, but she would be kept as a secret wife or concubine for her Saudi kafil. Neither of these 2 men with whom she was married on paper had sex with her. She said because of her fear of being pregnant she agreed to be the kept wife of her Saudi sponsor, but was arrested the next day of her second mock marriage. Therefore, she had also not had sex with her Saudi kafil either. She explained her reason for agreeing to be a secret concubine to her kafil because she missed her monthly period twice and understood that she had become pregnant by the baby of one of the 2 policemen who raped her. The Pakistani chauffeur told her she would not be able to convince the Sharia court that she got raped and for sure she would be stoned to death. To avoid being killed and leaving her daughter in Saudi Arabia and her family in India without anyone to look after them, he convinced her to marry him on paper and be protected by her Saudi kafil Sheikh Ahmed. He had convinced her that her sponsor might either send her to India to deliver the illegitimate baby or bribe a Pakistani doctor and help her get a secret abortion. Rehana concluded her narration by saying, "I have never been a prostitute in all my life, and I have never slept with any man except my husband who died when I was in India." Rehana's story convinced the American human rights activist that she had conceived the baby she gave birth to while in jail, by one of the two Saudi police officers who had raped her in the desert on the outskirts of Jeddah when she and her daughter arrived newly in Saudi Arabia. Touched, the human rights activist, therefore, she has promised Rehana that she would draft her story and send it to international human rights organizations, foreign feminist groups, and other concerned groups. She also said she would share her tragic case with her friends and relatives on Facebook, Twitter, Messenger, YouTube, LinkedIn, and the internet chat rooms on Paltalk, Clubhouse, and TikTok. Rehana begged the American human rights activist who interviewed her in the women's prison to search for her daughter Ifat, and if she found her to please convince her to come and visit her mother before she is stoned to death. She lamented that she did not know the address of the house where she left her daughter with her Saudi employers when she got arrested and thrown behind bars. She remembered only the name of her sponsor Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed and the name of his Pakistani chauffeur Sabir Ibrahim Shah. Even so, the American human rights activist was able to obtain from the women's prison officials the address and phone number of the condemned Indian maidservant's Saudi sponsor. When Rehana was arrested, Sheikh Ahmed gave the police his business address. The human rights activist decided to go to his office and ask him about the daughter of his Indian maidservant, who is in the Jeddah women's jail awaiting her execution through stoning. Before she visited his business office, she phoned and talked to his secretary and asked for an appointment. His secretary duly informed her that Sheikh Ahmed at present is on an overseas business trip to Asmara in Eritrea, and he would be back after a week. She then promised to phone her as soon as her boss was back in his office. Chapter 8. The Fieldwork of the American Scholar. The human rights activist who interviewed Rehana Khan in the Jeddah women's prison is called Shama Abdulbari Ahmed. She was born to a Saudi father and an American mother. Her Arab father studied in America. While he was studying for his MBBS, he fell in love with one of his American female classmates. Shama's parents did not marry but lived as common-law partners for a few years. As soon as her father completed his studies in medicine, he left America and returned to his Arab country. He abandoned her mother and their little daughter and told her that he was going to his homeland, and then he would come back to marry her. He promised further that he would then come back and take her and their daughter Shama to live with him in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He never came back or contacted his girlfriend, nor did he inquire about his daughter. Shama was raised by her American grandmother. Shortly after, her mother fell in love with another Arab immigrant from Iraq. Her new Arab boyfriend is an Iraqi Christian man who does not believe in premarital sex. Therefore, the Iraqi boyfriend asked his American girlfriend to marry him, and she agreed. Shama's stepfather escaped from Iraq while the tyrant Saddam Hussein was in power. He came to the United States as a political refugee. After the fall of Saddam's regime and the occupation of Iraq by the American and British troops, her stepfather convinced her mother to go with him to his country. Shama did not go with her mother and stepfather to Iraq. She lived with her grandparents until she finished her bachelor's degree in arts. She completed double majors in international justice and human rights and religious studies. While she was studying religion, Shama took some academic courses on women in Islam. Through these courses, she learned about the misogynistic teachings of the Prophet Muhammad and the Quran. She decided to do her master's degree in religious studies and specialize in the status of women in Islam. She chose for her fieldwork the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for two specific reasons. Firstly, women in Saudi Arabia are treated like female slaves or personal property, and imprisoned in their houses as dangerous creatures. The second reason is simply that Shama wanted to find her Saudi father. Although she knew that her American mother had bitter feelings toward her father because he had abandoned them a long time ago, Shama still longed to meet her father. She was an exceedingly small child when he abandoned them. She only knows him through a few photographs she saw in the family album. Shama had visited the Middle East several times during her studies in America, and she had spent most of her summer vacations with her mother in Iraq. She also traveled to many Arab countries like Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, and Morocco. She was able to pick up the dialects of those countries and learn to speak the classic Arabic language quite well. That is the basic language in which the Quran was written in the 7th century AD. As part of her curriculum, Shama began to take courses in the Arabic language. In that way, she learned the Arabic language and she can communicate well with Arab women. After completing her master's degree by studying several courses on religious studies, she decided to travel to Saudi Arabia and spend 6 months there and complete her fieldwork, so she can prepare herself for drafting her dissertation for obtaining her PhD in the status of women in Islam. The smart American girl decided to hit two birds by using one single stone. The same academic data she would collect in her fieldwork about the social conditions of women in Saudi Arabia, she is going to use in the future to write her second master's thesis and later for drafting her dissertation for obtaining her PhD on the conditions that govern Muslim women in their pure Islamic society. She knows Muslim women who live in Western societies are not subject to many of those misogynistic laws, rules, and regulations. She is quite aware that her research in such a strict Islamic country as Saudi Arabia involves high risk, but she is determined to face the challenges. When the American female scholar Shama Abdul Bari Ahmed applied for a visa to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, her application was rejected because she was a single young woman and unmarried. She was so disappointed when she learned the reason for the rejection of her visa. She was told the Sharia law in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia does not permit the woman to travel anywhere or step out of her house without her husband or a related male chaperone such as her father or brother. Shama then convinced her American boyfriend to travel with her to Saudi Arabia. When they applied for their visas, the applications were also rejected because they were living as common-law partners and conjugal partners, but not legally married as husband and wife. They were told that they should marry and show their marriage certificate. Once again, Shama convinced her American boyfriend to marry her. After that condition was met, the American female scholar and her American husband received their visiting visas and flew to Jeddah City and stayed in a small hotel located in downtown Jeddah. But Shama hid her field of academic research and claimed to be an American human rights activist. Shama wanted to go to Makkah City and Medina City, but because she is a Roman Catholic Christian, she was told by the Saudi embassy she could not go to any of the Islamic holy cities. Only a Muslim man and a Muslim woman can visit those holy cities and towns. But if the American Christian married couple defied that restriction and caught, they would be beheaded, and their blood would be upon their shoulders. During her academic fieldwork research, the American female scholar faced so many difficulties while she was trying to study the status of women in Saudi Arabia. Most of the Saudi women whom she tried to interview downright refused to talk to her. The husbands of some of the women threatened to call the Saudi correctional police officers on her and get her arrested and severely flogged. Some husbands and fathers of those burqa-clad women tried to harm her. Nevertheless, she was able to interview some maidservants and other foreign female employees who came from countries like Egypt, Lebanon, Somalia, Sudan, Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, and India. After spending 3 months without gaining sufficient information and data, Shama discovered that the Jeddah Women's Prison was allowing foreign journalists and reporters to interview female inmates. Therefore, she decided to go to jail and look for some Saudi women to interview them. After she reached the women's jail, she was told that she could talk only with the condemned female prisoners. She had been strictly forbidden to meet or talk with a female suspect who was in remand. This made no sense to her whatsoever, and when she asked about the reason for such denial, she was told that she might change the course of the trial by supplying information to the female suspects who are in remand. In due course, Shama met a few Saudi women and interviewed them. Some of those women are on death row, waiting to be stoned to death for marital infidelities, or faced beheading for crimes of first-degree murder. Some imprisoned unmarried women are waiting to be flogged with 100 lashes or more for committing various forms of fornication, including watching porn movies, lesbianism, sodomy, and carnal adultery. Most prostitutes in Saudi Arabia would refuse vaginal sex, but would agree to anal sex and pornographic sex through their mouths or hands for masturbating the phalluses of their customers. They know real sex would make them pregnant and expose them to stoning. This is because no store in that country sells condoms. In a country where bestiality is common practice, those sexually frustrated men can fuck goats and sheep, and in some cases, even hens and cows. Sometimes, camels would be involved in such evil practice. Still, others are indicted women awaiting amputation of their hands for theft and burglary. Some of the convicted women admitted their crimes, whereas others claimed to be innocents. Some women said they had been raped and impregnated by their rapists, but they could not prove the identity of their rapists. One young Saudi woman said that she had been impregnated by her brother's friend who raped her in his house when she went with her brother to visit his friend's sister. She said her brother became completely drunk by locally made liquor and could not move a limb when his friend took advantage of the situation and raped her in the women's section. Although she witnessed the rape crime, the friend's sister denied any knowledge when interrogated by the police. Another Saudi girl said that she was raped by her uncle in her house when no one was there. Shama knew that she could do nothing to stop those women from being cruelly punished by the Sharia court. She came to know also that Saudi Arabia would not allow DNA testing to verify or disprove any of those women's rape claims. On her rounds, the American human rights activist came across the indicted Indian female Rehana Khan and her so-called Walid al-Haram, or illegitimate baby boy. Shama Abdulbari has discovered that Rehana's crime is somehow unique. It is the first time she has come across a woman being jailed for marrying two husbands at the same time. She knows that Islam allows polygamy but strongly forbids polyandry. When Rehana was in tears and narrated her tragic story, Shama was extraordinarily touched by her situation. She has become convinced that Rehana is an innocent young woman. Despite such conviction, the human rights activist understood that she could do nothing to save her from execution. Nonetheless, she promised that she would find out what her Saudi sponsor had done with her little daughter Ifat. She said further that if her little girl is still with her Arab sponsor, she would try to convince him to allow her to come and see her mother before she is put to death. When she returned to the hotel, Shama shared the sad story of Rehana with her husband. Her husband is also puzzled by the nature of the charges. How could a Muslim woman in such a strict society think of marrying two men in less than 3 weeks? Therefore, both Shama and her husband have doubted the charges. They believe that Rehana Khan was somehow cheated and manipulated by those two men who claimed she had married them together without their knowledge. Unfortunately, the American couple knew and understood that they could do nothing to help that innocent Indian woman except, if possible, help her to see her small daughter before her soon-coming cruel execution through stoning. Chapter 9. Meeting the Arab pedophile and notorious womanizer. In her mind, the American human rights activist Shama Abdulbari Ahmed reasoned out that the only thing she could do to help the condemned Indian maidservant Rehana Khan is to fulfill her last wish of seeing her small daughter Ifat Khan before she is stoned to death. So she phoned Sheikh Ahmed's office and was told that she would be contacted upon his return from Asmara after 1 week. Shama waited for 2 weeks, but did not receive any phone call from Sheikh Ahmed's office. She thought that the secretary forgot to inform her boss of her request for an appointment. Instead of telephoning his office again, she decided to visit the office in person to inquire about the daughter of his condemned Indian maidservant. She expected that if the sponsor was still away, she would be able to get information about the daughter from the secretary, or they could provide her with a phone number or the address for his residence. Shama is also interested in meeting Sheikh Ahmed's fourth wife and interviewing her. Rehana had already told her how she was ill-treated by the wife number 4 of her Saudi kafil. The American girl Shama, like any other woman in Saudi Arabia, is not permitted to walk out of her hotel without her husband or male muharram accompanying her. Like them, she is also not allowed to walk on the streets with her face uncovered. When Shama and her American husband arrived at the office, she found Sheikh Ahmed had returned from Eritrea, and at present he is in his office. As soon as his female secretary told him that a young white woman has come to see him, the evil pedophile and notorious womanizer immediately began to think of sex, and his old penis stood like an ugly fungus inside his jilbab. He is sharing the erroneous Arab belief that white women are free-spirited, and anyone could take them to bed. He told his secretary to send the white woman by herself to him, and to tell her American husband to wait outside for her. As soon as the American woman walked inside his office, the evil sex monster stood up and offered his right hand to her. Then in a very friendly and polite manner, he pulled up an armchair and offered to sit down. "My name is Shama Abdulbari Ahmed. I am an American woman, but my father is a Saudi man. I am glad to meet you, Shama, and whatever help you need, I am under your service." "Thank you so much, sir. I have come to inquire about the daughter of your imprisoned maidservant Rehana Khan." Shama, like most Westerners, tended to look people in the eye when talking to them. Understanding the cultural differences, she loves to see the effects of her words on the eyes and face of the person she is talking to. As soon as she mentioned, "the daughter of your imprisoned maidservant Rehana Khan," she saw Sheikh Ahmed's eyes have reacted as if someone had just sprayed them with burning acid or chili powder, and his face appeared red and irritated. His smile disappeared instantly, and in its place, an angry mood surfaced. She could see that her words had really disturbed him. His friendly manner is replaced by an angry and hostile attitude. Therefore he raised his voice and shouted, "Who are you, and who has given you permission to come to me and talk to me about my former Indian maidservant's daughter?" "The mother of Ifat Khan requested me to inquire about her underage daughter. She sent me on this errand and asked me to tell you to allow her daughter to come and visit her in jail before she is stoned to death. I don't want anything to do with that dirty Indian prostitute. I haven't asked you about your maidservant's crime. As a mother, Rehana Khan has the right to see her child. Where is her daughter now?" "I don't have her daughter with me. She said she had left her 7-year-old child in your house when she was arrested 3 years ago. So your Indian maidservant had left her daughter under your care and custody. I had sent her daughter a long time ago to her relatives in India. How could you send a 7-year-old foreign child to India without the permission of her mother? Who are you to question me on what I did 3 years ago? I have told you that Rehana Khan had permitted me to locate the whereabouts of her small daughter. At least tell me how the little girl returned to India. No airline would allow a 7-year-old girl to fly without an adult accompanying her. I had sent her to Bombay along with my Pakistani chauffeur Mr. Sabir Ibrahim Shah. In that case, I would like to meet your Pakistani chauffeur and talk to him. Why do you want to meet him, and what do you want to ask him about?" It is already clear to Shama that Sheikh Ahmed is lying to her. Her woman's intuition told her that the old Arab man was hiding the underage girl somewhere and doing something evil to her. Most probably, he is raping her under the guile and pretension of the Islamic halal child marriage. Therefore, she decided not to leave his office until she got something concrete about Ifat Khan. "Yes, I must meet him and find out about Rehana's little daughter. My former Pakistani car driver left Saudi Arabia, and returned to his country 2 years ago. Okay, I will need proof that he took the small Indian girl to Bombay City. Which proof do you want? Are you a policewoman to interrogate me in such a manner? Sir, I am not a policewoman. I am an American human rights activist. I am inquiring about someone's child. As a mother, Rehana Khan has the right to know where her daughter is now and to meet her before her execution, which is due in a couple of months. Why should I need to give you proof that I had sent the daughter of my maidservant to her relatives in India? Are you a relative of Rehana Khan and her daughter Ifat, or an Indian diplomat woman? If you do not give me some proof, I am going to go directly to the Jeddah Police Authority and report you as a kidnapper, rapist, and detainer of an underage child. In response to Sharma's serious threat, Sheikh Ahmed touched the speaker on his phone and called his secretary into his secretary. He then told her to pull from the old files copies of the air tickets belonging to Ifat Khan and Sabir Ibrahim Shah, and show them to the white woman. He kept those copies on hand because he expected that someday someone might come knocking on his door asking him about the little Indian girl Ifat Khan. Sharma followed the secretary and went out with him, but came back in less than 10 minutes. While she is standing like a policewoman, she said angrily, the copies of those tickets showed that Ifat and Sabir flew to Asmara via Bombay and Manila. The final destination on the tickets is Eritrea and not India. Yes, the final destination on the tickets is Eritrea, but Ifat's flight ended at Bombay while my former Pakistani chauffeur continued his trip to Asmara. The Indian consulate in Jeddah rejected the application of my chauffeur for a visiting visa to Bombay because he is a Pakistani man, and those accursed Hindus consider every Pakistani a terrorist and enemy of India. How did the 7-year-old Ifat travel from the Bombay International Airport to her family's house, and who came to receive her at the airport? My Indian client, Mr. Muhammad Khan, came to the international airport and received her, and took her to her family's hut in the slum area. Sharma wanted to ask Sheikh Ahmed to give her the phone number of his Indian client Mr. Muhammad Khan in Bombay, but worried she may be going too far in her inquiry. She understood that even a police inspector might not go too deep in his inquiries, as she had already done with the angry Saudi old man. Instead of running into trouble with Sheikh Ahmed, she decided to go to Rehana and give her the information she collected about her daughter Ifat. She figured the information about the whereabouts of Ifat Khan might very well be true. She then thanked Sheikh Firoz bin Ahmed and left his office. The wicked old man does not believe the smart young white woman has been fully convinced of his false story. He is worried that she might go to the police and somehow implicate him in the disappearance of the Indian maidservant's child. So he decided to take drastic measures to stop her before she could get him into some serious trouble with the police authority of Jeddah. As soon as the American human rights activist Sharma and her husband left his office, he rushed out and entered his vehicle. He asked his new Somali chauffeur to follow the taxi bearing the white couple. Then he ordered his driver to ram his car into the white woman and her American husband the moment they got out of the taxi. He told him he must kill the white woman in particular. The Somali driver at first is reluctant to follow the orders of his Saudi kafil, but when Sheikh Ahmed writes him a check for a huge sum of money, gives it to him, and also promises to testify in court on his behalf and swear the accident is not his fault, he agreed to hit the white woman. When the taxi reached the hotel, Sharma came out first, but her husband remained inside to pay the cab fare. He then paid the taxi driver and got out. While he was emerging from the taxi, he saw a brand new Mercedes car driving at full speed, and it hit his wife. Sharma's body flew for a few seconds and flung into the air, as if it had been blown up by a bomb, and landed on the concrete asphalt street. The loud impact of the car and human flesh is impossible to ignore, and every person walking along the street has stopped and looked. Sharma's husband could not believe his eyes. When he saw what had befallen his beloved wife, it was clear to him that the Mercedes car targeted his wife and hit her intending to kill her. He quickly with trembling hands took his pen and notebook, jotted down the number of the Mercedes, and then ran to the fallen body of his wife, who was a few meters away from the violating car. He saw blood everywhere. She is lying on her back, motionless, and the burqa comes out of her head, and her face and hair become visible. Her husband began to scream and call for help. He took out of his pocket his cell phone and dialed 911. When he did not hear any dial tone, he remembered that he was not in his country. He tried to talk to the crowd in English, but no one understood his language. He called for a taxi, but no driver was prepared to stop and take the body of his wife in his car. Everyone is scared to come near the body of the white woman. After a long wait, a police car came, followed by an ambulance. Unfortunately, the American brave and loving human rights activist Shama died before her body ever reached the hospital. The late American female victim Shama Abdul Bari Ahmed is the biological granddaughter of Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed. Her father, Dr. Abdul Bari, is the son of the late first wife of Sheikh Ahmed, Khadija. He studied medicine in the USA. At present, he is working as a medical doctor at King Fahd Royal Hospital in Riyadh City. But neither the evil old geezer, nor the victim Shama, nor her father knew about this blood relationship, and most likely none is going to find out about the relationship. The Saudi father of the late American female victim Shama has already married 2 Saudi wives, and has sons and daughters with them, and he is now looking for a child bride to marry as wife number 3 to rape and abuse her. He had completely forgotten about the American woman with whom he had fathered a child during his study of medicine in the land of the infidels. If today someone asked him about the names of his American girlfriend and their daughter, he would not be able to tell. And with the cruel murder of his biological American daughter Shama, the chapter is closed in his life forever. If he would come to know later that his father has killed his American daughter from adultery, he would praise his daddy for getting rid of his bint al-Haram, and he might make a Statue of Liberty for him and erect it in the biggest street in Jeddah. The late Shama made a mistake by coming to do academic fieldwork on Muslim women in a jungle full of deviants. Moreover, she made another grievous blunder by searching in a sea teeming with deadly sharks for her biological father, who abandoned her when she was a baby girl. For her Saudi father, she is like a walking and talking sex scandal of an adulterous relationship with his former American girlfriend, who had never become his lawful wife. In Islam, such an illegitimate daughter like the late Shama is not counted as a daughter at all. The Islamic Sharia permits the father to sleep with his daughter who was born to him out of adultery. He is even allowed to marry her and have children with her because adultery would not establish a blood relationship. This license is mentioned in the Holy Quran. The renowned Muslim commentator Al-Qurtubi, commenting on Surah Al-Furqan 25, verse 54, has said that the Muslim man could marry and have sex with his daughter born out of adultery because adultery would not establish a blood relationship. Chapter 10. The son of the U.S. Senator. The late Shama's husband is called Joshua Alexander Thomas. His father is a senator in the U.S. Congress. Joshua was against the idea of his girlfriend traveling to Saudi Arabia and doing her fieldwork in such a backward society, and among barbaric men who look at and treat women like meat. It is his unwavering love for Shama that made him compromise and agree to travel with her. At first, Shama wanted to travel all alone and do her fieldwork on women in Islam and to search for her Saudi father. When the Saudi embassy rejected her visa because she had Northwest husband or any close male relative to travel with her, her boyfriend Joshua felt inwardly relieved because she now wanted him to come along with her. He knew that his girlfriend would need a man to protect her from those sexually perverted men who could see nothing in the woman except a sexy body or a pussy created by Allah for the man's sexual pleasure. After they arrived in Saudi Arabia, Joshua felt as if they landed in an open prison for females. Everything is different, and living in the kingdom of Tartarus is understandably boring for Shama and Joshua. They have no entertainment venues. There are no movie theaters, nightclubs, or bars. Whatever liquor they brought with them was seized at Jeddah International Airport. Ever since their arrival, they could not find a place to buy even a can of beer. Whenever they went to have their food, they found the restaurant inevitably divided into two sections, the men's section and the women's quarters, as if it were a public washroom. The local women look like scary moving black ghosts in their huge black abayas and niqabs. Women are not allowed to speak in public because the woman's voice is a wara, which makes Joshua and Shama distinctly uneasy. They are afraid that underneath one of those black burqas, there might be a male terrorist who might attack them simply because they are white foreigners. Being Americans made them more vulnerable to the terrorists' kidnap. Anyone would forgive Joshua for counting the days for his wife to finish her field work and return to their free and civilized society. Joshua has an LLB degree and specializes in international law. The cruel murder of his beloved wife has just turned his life upside down. He has no one to stand with him. He wept bitterly when the hospital declared his wife dead. After overcoming the impact of her death, he made 2 phone calls. First, he called Shama's mother in Baghdad and broke the sad news to her. After that, he phoned his father in Washington and informed him about the murder of his wife and the reason behind her assassination. On that fateful day, while they were returning from the office of Sheikh Ahmed, Shama informed Joshua what had happened between her and the Saudi sponsor of the imprisoned Indian maidservant who had sent her to inquire about her 7-year-old daughter. She even used her cell phone and secretly recorded every word they had spoken to each other. After hearing the unpleasant dialogue between his wife and the old Saudi man, which Shama translated to him, Joshua concluded that Sheikh Ahmed is hiding the little girl somewhere, and most probably raping her under the pretense of child marriage. Accordingly, Joshua convinced his wife to take the case of the small Indian girl to the police in Jeddah. Therefore, on her husband's wise advice, Shama was planning to go to the Saudi police authority as soon as she met Rehana, and tell her what she heard about her daughter from her Saudi sponsor. Being an American woman who was born and brought up in a free society that treats men and women equally, Shama thought she could challenge a Muslim man and expected him to be intimidated by her serious threats and reveal to her or the police where he was hiding the little girl of his former Indian maidservant. Sadly, her Western cultural upbringing worked against her in Saudi Arabia and led to her brutal murder by an Arab old man who would not like to take orders from a woman even if she is a policewoman. For him, the woman is deficient in intellect and religion, and therefore she is a body without a brain, and she is good for nothing except for sexual enjoyment on the bed and producing children. In Islamic society, the woman's testimony is not accepted in court even if she has seen with her own eyes the murder of her son. She is a zero citizen and a fully concealed big pussy. Whoever gets a chance can rape it without the fear of culpability. No wonder in colloquial Arabic the woman's vagina is called camel, which means an animal that is created for any man to climb on it and fuck it. According to the Islamic tradition, the woman, she-camel, and the goat female are to be climbed on them, for they are meant for riding on them. This hadith cannot be interpreted as meant to say these 3 creatures are meant for riding on them, because no one can ride on a woman or a goat female. What is meant here is that those 3 female creatures were created by God to climb on their bodies by their male counterparts and have sex with them. So in Islam, the lovemaking between man and woman has been emptied of any love and intimacy, and has been reduced to mere animalistic sexual behavior, just like that between goats and camels. Joshua's father, Mr. Alexander Thomas, told his son to leave Saudi Arabia as soon as possible and return to the United States of America. The father is worried that the same evil person who murdered his daughter-in-law might come after his son and kill him too. Even so, Joshua refused to listen to his father and decided to stay in Jeddah City until the person who killed his wife was brought to justice. The first report that Joshua heard from the police of Jeddah regarding the car that hit his wife and killed her was that the driver was a Somali young man by the name of Abdelgader Ibrahim. He was arrested under the serious charges of drinking alcohol and driving and causing the death of a foreign woman. The report also showed that the car belonged to a wealthy Saudi business tycoon by the name of Sheikh Faiz bin Ahmed. The Somali man is the foreign chauffeur of the businessman. Sheikh Ahmed was in the car when the accident took place. Joshua rejected that false story because he met the Somali man in the office of Sheikh Ahmed and talked to him. It was the Somali man who approached Joshua while he was waiting for his wife in the reception room and conversed with him. He had requested Joshua's help in emigrating to the United States of America. From their brief conversation, Joshua knew that the Somali was not drunk. Accordingly, the American young man Joshua went to the police and informed them that the story of drinking and driving was not true. He said it is just a made-up story, which meant to cover up the crime that Sheikh Ahmed committed against his wife, who wanted to expose his serious crime of kidnap and rape of a minor Indian girl to the law. Then he told them about the case of the imprisoned Indian maidservant and her missing little daughter. The Saudi police rejected Joshua's claim as preposterous and told him to leave it to the judge of the Sharia court of Jeddah to decide upon it. Joshua insisted that his statement about the Somali driver should be included in the case. The Saudi police did not agree. When the police denied his statement, Joshua threatened to take the matter to a higher authority. That said, the American boy told the Saudi police that his father is a senator in the Congress of the United States, and he would use the authority of his father and report the assassination of his wife to the King of Saudi Arabia. By revealing to the Saudi police that his father is a congressman, Joshua had inadvertently exposed his identity and put himself in danger. The Saudi policeman placed him under arrest for trying to use the position of his American father to scare them. The arrest of the son of the American senator in Jeddah City leaked to the foreign media men and spread all over the world. At first, the international media concentrated on the arrest of the son of Senator Mr. Alexander Thomas. He was arrested by the Jeddah police under the charge of trying to use the position of his father to twist the hand of the Saudi police. The international media is quick to express concern about the safety of a senator's son inside a Saudi prison. It is a well-known fact that the jails in Saudi Arabia are full of dangerous terrorists of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Therefore, the son of Senator Mr. Thomas would not fare well at all in prison. It did not help that Senator Alexander Thomas was one of the American congressmen who voted in favor of the war on terror in Afghanistan and Iraq, and the international media had already revealed such classified information to the public.